So the Metaopsis application was developed to run on your Linux, your Mac, Windows. It can be double clicked, or you can run it from the command line. I'm just going to run this from the command line. You can start it up. We'll just close this down to real estate. And the splash screen will come up, and while it's running, it's loading some processes in the background. Once that is done, it'll bring up the main screen, which is your configurations tab. From here, you can build new configurations. You can look at your history. You can take the about, get your version when it was at last updated. You can click the link here and go look to the Metaopsis website if there's look for any updates or maybe roadmap of what's to come. You can also click on the license. Tells you who the company is that this is licensed for, the expiration date, and what products that they're currently licensed for. So let's go ahead and create a new configuration. So we're going to call this Demo 1. And we're going to choose, we want Power Center to Informatica Cloud. All right. And anybody familiar with Informatica Power Center is familiar with the PM source file dir and these other types of variables. We're going to override these and we put in some defaults. The Informatica Cloud code page, we've left the UTF-8. You can look at the documentation currently for all the other code pages. The next release of 1.6, we will have these updated. From the Informatica Cloud agent, to know what to put here, you can log into your Informatica Cloud org. And you can look at all your agents. In this case, we have Lenovo. I'm going to go ahead and pick that. So let's go ahead and pick Lenovo. The time zone, I'm going to pick where I'm currently at, which is American New York. Also in the next release, the 1.6, we will have this set up so that you can, it will pull in all your agents from the Informatica Cloud environment, and you can just it'll be a drop down, you can select them. The username and password is going to be your username and password that you use to log into your Informatica Cloud org. So let's just go ahead and enter that in. Password. And the password is also encrypted when we persist it, so there's no chance that anybody could be able to come in and see the password in plain text. The Informatica Cloud prefix. Now this is something that we added because Informatica Cloud at the moment does not have the concept of folders. So what we've done is if you're migrating a very large repository and you want to segment out your jobs by business unit or what you had was a folder, you can prefix those jobs. So for instance, you could do, for development, you could do ZZ underscore, and you can, then be able to quickly filter out only the stuff that you want. And then if you have any stored procedure types, Informatica Cloud, you have to explicitly tell it whether it's Oracle or SQL Server. I don't have any. I'm just going to choose Oracle for this demonstration just so you see. We can then choose the Informatica Cloud repository XML. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and choose this one up here. It has a couple folders in it. The no workflows. So where that comes in is, if you have a lot of or all of your workflows or just single sessions workflows, you don't really need to create the workflows anymore because Informatica Cloud doesn't need a workflow construct to be able to execute the session. Once the session has been migrated into an MCT or a mapping configuration task, it can execute on its own and just point to the mapping. So in that scenario, where this comes in handy is if you have a lot of those and you don't want to execute or you don't want to create the mapping just for the sake of creating, or I'm sorry, create the workflow for the sake of creating the workflow, or you have an external scheduler and you want to have it do your orchestration, and you can just have them point right to the MCT. So I'm going to select that here. Parameter files, if you have any parameter files in any of your workflow sessions, you need to select that. I don't have any, so I'm not going to select it. We'll save this. And the very first thing it does is it goes ahead and it tells us you need to run analysis on it. So before we can do anything else, before we can even run a conversion, we need to come in and be able to run a analysis. So we come up, it tells us the configuration name that we selected, just so we can, just in case we accidentally click something else. The source and target, what the metadata that it's reading from. And then we can go ahead and click this, and then boom, it's already done. And it generates a report. So when we close this, you can see that it now changes the status to run conversion, and it also has enabled the report. So if I click on this, it will pop up this report, and it says, okay, you have 2 folders, 2 workflows, 2 sessions, 2 mappings. So it tells me that this folder has 3 objects, which happens to be a workflow and a folder and a mapping. And this folder also has 3, and they all happen to be at 100%. So now that this is done, we could also edit this. So in this case, what if we had to change our cloud password, or maybe we decided that we wanted one of these variables to point someplace else. Maybe our PM source file dir needs to go to this directory /source, and then the target/target. We can update that here. We have nothing to update, so I'm just going to go ahead and cancel out. Next, we can run the conversion. When we run the conversion, it'll go ahead and tells us that it's parsed through everything. We can look at our workflows, our mappings. We can decide maybe we just want to do the mapping, because maybe there isn't a session, but we want to get the mapping up there anyway. In this case, I'm just going to choose the workflows out of both folders. I could choose one or the other, but maybe I want to go ahead and migrate both of these. And then when we're ready to go, before we do this, you'll notice, I just want to point out, we have this workflow, these workflows. We're not going to create these workflows, but we are going to create the mapping in the associated session. So just to point out, we'll go up here to our cloud. These are the current mapping configuration tasks or sessions. And these are the current mappings that we have. Because I keep getting asked, how do you migrate this? What are you doing? And just so everybody knows, yes, we do actually migrate this. We take it from the Power Center and migrate it to Informatica Cloud. So we're going to run the convert. And it's thinking, it's going through everything, running the process. Give you something pretty to look at while that's happening. And then once it's done, it's going through the process, and it really is pretty quick. It goes through and it tells you, everything that it's doing. So we'll kind of start at the top here. I'm not going to go through everything, but you'll get the idea. It's going through, it's doing a sync, pulling down certain information, your schedulers, your what it says, custom funcs, that's actually your maplets, any kind of connections, etc. Just so if there's any, make sure that we're not trying to duplicate anything. Once it's done, now it tells us, okay, now I'm in the conversion state. Which folder is it working on? Okay, it's processing this workflow, it sees this session in this workflow, and it sees this mapping. So now it's converting the mapping, it's going through and taking it out of the Power Center metastructure, and it's now putting it into the Informatica Cloud metastructure. It goes through and it's telling us all the different objects inside of that it sees and what it's doing with them. Then it comes down and it says, okay, now I'm going to attempt to create this mapping, the mapping router relational. And then it says, yes, I created it, it's updated it, and it does the same thing over again for the next folder. So it's coming down through here, and it's processing everything out of that next folder and creating the union. So let's go take a look. Let's go back to our mapping configuration task. So there we are. We have created our session for the router and for the union. And we come down here. We now have our mapping router relation, and we can see that it's now been tied to a mapping configuration task. And our M union has also been created as well. So we can take a look at, we'll just edit this one real quick. Now, when these are first migrated and you edit them, you'll notice that everything's kind of stacked on itself. That's because trying to figure out the palette and how everything's laid out, it just didn't want to spend the time trying to calculate all that. You come in, you can just do our auto arrange, which will do a much better job at arranging this on the screen and prettying it out for you. And then you can see, you can come in, you can look at all your fields. If there was any partitions, it would migrate those over. You can see the connection that it's used, the object for this source. You can look at your router. You can see that here's all the output groups and any kind of logic inside of them, and that they got routed to the appropriate target, and then as well as your field mapping is also handled as well. So, and that's the migration. If you have any questions, again, please feel free to reach out, and love to hear from you. Thank you, and have a great day.